This is SSN.
Story Studio Network.
I'm Tom Hoppe, and I'm your host of the Most Painful Podcast. Welcome to the Most Painful Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Hoppe. On our last episode, we spoke to Lori Taylor about trauma-informed yoga and how this form of yoga is much different than your regular yoga class. Also, this type of yoga can help a person process trauma. As we've heard many times on this podcast, taking care of your mental health can really help with your chronic pain. So if you missed this episode, you can listen to it on our Spotify or Apple feed. And if you want to get notifications of the most recent episodes, subscribe to the podcast. So purpose and identity are important in the biopsychosocial model of chronic pain. In Season 2 and 3, we spoke about the similarities between military and professional athletes with identity and mindset transition when leaving a sport or, in the military case, leaving service. What are some organizations doing to help their members transition and also help with wellness programs? Today I'm joined by Brian Ramsey, the Executive Director of the CFL Players Association. Brian, welcome to the show.
Tom, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, great to have you on. I know we talked a bit about this offline, but maybe just to start, maybe you can give the audience an idea what the CFLPA is and what you kind of do for your members.
Yeah, the Canadian Football League Players Association was formed in 1965, and its sole purpose was to protect the rights and well-being of professional football players in Canada. There's a long list of things that we do, from negotiating collective agreements and individual contracts, licensing and sponsorship, and day-to-day just the overall maintenance of those agreements that we've made with the league and the teams. On top of that, we've been tasked with providing resources to our members and a variety of aspects, and including some of the ones that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, and I know when we talked about this offline, it's pretty interesting the kind of work you've done for your members. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, I know you had mentioned when people get into the sport, you're already starting to talk to them about transition out. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really been a culture change in our organization. It's, for a professional athlete, you spend so many years working to get to that point, and really the last thing you want to do is think about leaving it. And when you get there, you want to try and hold on to it as long as you can. And a few years ago now, in 2016, our members tasked us with looking to create a resource aimed specifically at helping our members and their families for transition. What we do know in professional sports and particularly in football, the average career length is quite short. We're in the CFL, it's about 2.9 years for our members. And so what we know, our members are going to do something after football for much longer than they actually did on the football field. And that shift that you talked about, sort of having that conversation, was difficult at first for the reasons I said, where, you're talking to a member, an individual that spent 15, 20 years trying to get to this point, and then you're saying, well, hold on a sec, now I want you to think about when you're not there. And in fact, the engagement we've got from our group has come from the ability and the leadership from within our locker rooms to say, well, we can do both. And your biggest supporter, if you can play 3, 5, 8, 10, 15 years of professional football, we'll be right beside you as your biggest supporter the whole way through. But that still means when you come in as a 21, 22, 23-year-old, there's still a large piece of your life afterwards, and you can prepare for that ultimate transition while you're still playing football. And with this program, the CFLPA Academy that we created in 2016, we've seen that engagement. We've seen sort of that leadership from our members being able to do both.
Yeah, and I would think that I wasn't aware of it either until we had spoke that, really that mindset of coming in, you only have 2 years of your profession left. Really, I agree with you. That could be very hard. And I would think a lot of people don't understand, non-players probably don't understand the challenges your players go through with trying to get those services when they leave, I guess, eh? Or is it even while they're in the game, it's probably easier to get those services, or is it more difficult once you leave?
I think it's always more difficult once you leave. And I think from a player's point of view, you're never thinking that my career is going to be 2-3 years, right? You're always thinking, I'm going to continue playing and continue playing. And when we looked at it statistically, and we saw that, in the high 80% of our members don't make the decision ultimately of when they want to leave the game. It's either through injury or what a team would say a business decision is. That was eye-opening for our members. And that sort of helped in that cultural change and to allow them to work on their craft as a professional athlete and stay at that peak performance level, but also utilize their spare time to prepare for that transition. But yes, it was a culture shock when we first introduced the program, but now the engagement within our members is just astounding in a positive way.
And I mean, when you say 80%, that is a high number when you think of it, that. And I think, military members, we obviously go into the service to do our duty and do our job. I can speak for myself and probably many other guys. We don't go in there thinking that we're going to finish in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. And when people are released medically, it's a huge impact because we didn't see it coming. So I like your approach where you're already telling people at the start, this is not going to be forever. And I wonder if that helps with the whole identity transition piece too.
I think so. I mean, the program itself was modeled after some of the initiatives that have been built for servicemen and women across the country. And so the mandate of our program, the Academy, is to provide support for the CFLPA members and their families to succeed in life today, but also as they transition away from the football field. So I think a big piece of our members accepting a program such as this is we're saying that we're not pushing you to leave. In fact, we're saying you may be able to stay a bit longer if you're preparing yourself, reducing some of the stresses, taking care of yourself from a mental and health, wellness perspective, and you take advantage of some of these resources. But as you said, I can't speak for the service side, but it is more difficult to get the employer's attention or some of the resources and some of the programs once you're not in. For us in the locker room, it's once those doors have closed, it can be a very difficult thing to try and come back into them.
And is that more from the management? I don't want to get into the whole thing, but is that just more from the management side, or is that the players as well? I mean, life just goes on. You're now out of the game. It's like you say, hard to get back into the locker room.
Yeah, it is. And without turning this into a sort of a stat session here, but our membership turnover about 25% a year, right? So a quarter of your members roll through each year. And the reality is, from a business perspective, management look at our members as the product, and they are the product. But when there's no use for them on the football field to run their business, then it is much more difficult, and they don't treat them the same. That's something that's just a reality, and we prepare our members. In fact, we were just out last week in Winnipeg speaking to the next class of members, the Combine, where they're putting the university and draft eligible students this year that are preparing for the CFL draft. So they haven't even entered our membership. They haven't entered. They're aiming to get that first contract, and we have an opportunity to speak to them. And we're actually bringing this topic to them even before they enter the league now, because what we're saying is that we want you to come in. We want you to be part of our membership. You'll have all the tools and support of our group the whole way through, but you have to understand it's a business. You have to understand that what you do afterwards is going to be for 10 times as long as you, on average, 10 times as long as your playing career. And you've got to take advantage of the resources available and the opportunities that are available to you.
Yeah, and I think about the military side too is, it's different that it's not a business, but when we talk about identity, it seems that, you're saying your players have been very focused from kids right up to getting into the sport. They're focused that that's the direction they want to go. And when we enter the military, we're focused on the mission and the direction we want to go. And when that's taken away from us, the purpose is lost. And no one tells us at the start that, this is going to be over in a couple of years. So I think that approach is good. So with the wellness program, I mean, it's good that you're starting that, before they even get into the game. So can you maybe tell us about how that process works when they're getting out of the game? What's available for them?
Yeah, and that's one of the keys. So when we first started this program, it was it was one partner and one member. It was started, and as I said, it was we took the foundation of some of the programs that was used for the military members, and we see the similarities as you mentioned. We always are very clear, though, that sport, although there's similarities in terms of itineraries and structure and practice and that, sport does not equate to military. They're just not the same. But we can learn a lot from the military environment, and we've taken and adapted that to sport. And we've said, well, if we build this program now, and if as soon as a member's contract is terminated, all those resources stop immediately, are we really helping the member? So what we've been able to do is we've expanded the rehabilitation. We continue to expand the availability of these resources. Some of them are for life now. Is once you're a member, there's some resources that are available to you for life. Others that are more focused on the active membership, but we've expanded all of our resources to a minimum of 5 years. So 5 years as part of your transition, you have access to this program in its entirety. And we found that everyone learns a little bit different. Some guys have taken advantage of it in their first, second years, played 3 or 4 more, and just continue to sort of build that toolbox that we talk about internally of creating and building those tools so that they're ready for that transition. And others don't pick it up until their final year or two, and they're in midstream. And to your point, that would be the wrong time to turn it off. We've asked them to engage. They have engaged, and we make sure that they're able to see it through.
So you talk about some of the resources. What are those resources?
The foundation of the program is built around 3 pillars. So there's an education pillar, there's a career pillar, and then there's a health and wellness. And so we've opened this up, as I said, to our members, their families, dependents. And the education pillar is just as it seems. It's there's scholarships at post-secondary. So we've got members that are finishing degrees, starting 4-year degrees, finishing postgraduate degrees, starting them. We've got certificates, workplace certificates. One of our programs that we've recently expanded is through firefighting. And we've had just under 40 of our members in the last 5 years become certified firefighters in North America. And the neat part about a program such as that is they get certified and they can continue to play. And we encourage that. And so we've got some members that got certified in their 3rd year or playing in their 8th. So they're certified firefighters in North America. So whenever they ultimately make that transition, they've been volunteering at different stations and getting to know that and picking up all their certificates through these programs. And that'll just assist with them when they ultimately make that choice. And so that education pillar it's about 120 courses annually that renew, everywhere from Oregon State to Athabasca, Saskatchewan Polytechnic. As I mentioned, the fire training is through Training Division. We've got financial literacy with the Enriched Academy, just a variety of programs. And really, Tom, one of the things I should have sort of touched on at the beginning about this program, the reason that we've found success in this is there's no surprises in it. It was because it was built by our members. The idea and the concept of creating the resource was given to us by our board. And when we created the resource, we went to the members and what do you want in a transition program? And when we polled the members and asked them questions and they gave us that feedback in terms of what they want, we knew we were going to be successful because we were putting in programs that they're asking for. So when we look at the education in particular, well, I want to learn to become a realtor after. Well, we make sure we've got a realtor course and ability for them to get certified. I want to get into coaching. I want to stay into sports. Well, we've got that alignment. So every piece that we've added has been added by feedback from the members. And so we know that we continually, and we've got great partners. We've got excellent partners in terms of being flexible around our members' schedules and the demands of playing professional football. The career pillar, sort of that second pillar for us, is more about helping our members and assisting them in preparing for even sort of the admin side of it, we call it. A lot of our guys have never been through a traditional job interview, preparing resumes, working on engagements in internship programs, if they can internship, build a relationship in the off season. It's less around finding them that immediate job, although that those examples do occur, but it's more about preparing them for starting another career outside of the professional football one that they've been used to. And then finally, that third pillar is our health and wellness. And I would say, all three are important, but this one in particular, over the past few years, as we've all gone through the pandemic and various challenges, our members and their families have relied on this pillar, and we offer, there's 24-hour, 365-day-a-year service, but again, that's more reactive services, but those are available for our membership. But we continue to expand proactive pieces for them to ask the questions, for them to try and be proactive in their wellness. And it's a variety of pieces that have been able to assist them and their families in that program.
That sounds like a very well-rounded program. And, as you're talking, I think about some of the military stuff, and they have, helmets to hard hats, and they have some transition programs that come out. And I think one of the gaps that we see, and I don't know if it's on your side, but we do see it on our side, is the knowledge when it comes to chronic pain. We're finding that a lot of veterans don't know about chronic pain and some of the science behind it, and so they have a challenge managing that chronic pain. And it's almost like they have to seek it out themselves versus it being organized. So I don't know if that's something that maybe you guys address in your wellness program. You might have some points on that could be helpful.
Well, I think it's something that we're always trying to get better at, and listen to the members. I don't think that, I know we're not doing enough, because I don't think you ever are. I think you're constantly learning in that area. Yeah. I think even the discussion about, you go back a few years, it was something that you didn't talk about, right? It was something that you, at least in our ecosystem, it would be, it was all about availability, and in some respects it still is. And so you didn't talk about the pain you were going through, and it wasn't until much later in your career or post-career is when you realized that this is having an effect on my day-to-day. And it's not just one area, but it's that chronic pain that, for us, it's the knee, the shoulder, and you look back and you say, well, I've had 8-9 surgeries on this. I'm in my early 30s, and I'm making that correlation and that struggling. And I think some of the conversations we've had with you and your team, Tom, that's our group trying to figure out better ways to provide the resources to our members. Because quite frankly, for our group as professional athletes, they're lacking. They're lacking in terms of what we can ensure that our members have. And we've got to continue to push forward to make sure that those members that for us that were hurt in the workplace are protected for that chronic pain and long-term injuries.
Yeah, and on our side too, we're struggling with it as well. There's lots of people that we have substantial injuries coming out of the military, and people are going to physio, they're going to kinesiology, they're doing that. But what we're finding is the knowledge of, I didn't realize that, if I have a down day, that's going to affect my chronic pain, or I didn't realize that if I eat this certain food, that's going to cause inflammation. And I think that's where that knowledge is missing on our side, and that's something that we're trying to bridge the gap. It's one of the reasons this podcast is going is for that, to try to bridge that gap. Yeah. So I think everybody's always trying to improve. And I think when I look at one of the programs with the NFL guys in the US, the matching veterans with players, they seem to be doing that kind of, community sort of locker room atmosphere, and then dribbling some education into it, which I think is a good start, a good model. I don't know if that's something that is done with your members up here.
Well, it's internally discussed, but we need to open up and branch out more. I think, and I said that's really how you and I got to meet, and I think why I'm here today is that. There's strength in numbers, but there's also a comfort in numbers as well. If you're not going through something alone, and the education aspect. I think one of the similarities between our two groups is just that, is that we had both been told for years to not let the pain affect you and to sort of push that pain away. And what we're saying is there are better ways to be able to manage it and work through it. And when you do that together, that can be a very powerful thing, and it transcends sports and it transcends military. It brings people, if you're going through rehabilitation, it doesn't matter if you played 20 years playing hockey or football or sports or your 25-year military career, you're still going through the same issue and dealing with that pain. And how can we do that together? And how can we help educate our two groups together? Because it's a very powerful tool. Yeah,
and just as you're saying that, it just kind of put the light bulb on, because we just did a session with a number of veterans where, we talked about pacing, we talked about a number of things to do with chronic pain and how to measure your strength and conditioning after you have pain. And a lot of it goes back to identity and how we were trained to just constantly push through pain. So you get these peaks and valleys when we're training, even after we're out, which makes it worse. So yeah, it's that kind of knowledge, I think, that, and just looking back and deciding, what were we taught? How were we conditioned? And what is different? And how can we use that for our, what are our strengths out of it and what are our differences out of it to make us stronger with this? But I like what you're doing. I like the pillar idea with your members. I think that's, and now the alumni, do they have, you said 5 years, and after that they're kind of on their own, or can they reach back for any other support after that 5-year mark?
Yeah, they can. We have our alumni association that we work closely with. And in fact, we continue even today to become stronger in terms of aligning that. And a lot of our programs have now been created within their system so that there isn't that gap. And what we've found in feedback that I've received from their group is that they're getting less of those phone calls those years out, because they're finding that more of the members are being proactive on the front end, which is a very, very positive piece. But it, of course, doesn't mean that you don't stop thinking about the back end. It just, it shows that the program itself is working. And so if we can enhance it with sort of that net on the back end to make sure that if anyone has come through, obviously the goal is to make sure that the resources aren't turned off for anybody. It's just a reality of trying to build that out.
What I like about this whole thing, Brian, is that it's how it started from day one, and that mindset, that seed is planted that this is not forever. And I think that kind of helps with that. So I like that. That's well, Brian, it's been a great discussion. I know that we could probably talk more about this. And hopefully we can do more to help, both sides of the fence to do things. So thanks for being on the show.
Tom, I appreciate being on. I look forward to our two groups working even closer together in the future.
Great. Thank you. On our next upcoming shows, we're going to have some experts talk about hypnosis for post-surgical pain versus taking opioids. And we also have someone talking about peer support program for chronic pain. This is a Canada-wide program, so they'll be on in the next couple episodes. So hit the subscribe and like button. This way you'll get the latest episodes. For feedback about the show or for more information on chronic pain, you can visit our website, veteranschronicpain.ca, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Chronic Pain COE and on Instagram at Chronic Pain_COE. Brian, thanks again. And for the audience, stay safe and keep the hope alive.
The Most Painful Podcast is produced for the Chronic Pain Center of Excellence by Story Studio Network.